Welcome back to The Morning Blend. Our next guest wrote a fantasy novel during his deployment in an African war zone. He says it felt like an escape from the real-life danger there.
David D.L. Jennings wrote this book. It's called Gift of the Shaper. While in a hostile area of Africa, it won the Beverly Hills Book Award for Fantasy, and we are honored to have D.L. join us on the yellow couch. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be
you.
here.
You're from Miami.
Yeah.
I am, I know, where it's about 70 degrees warmer.
Yeah. Is your middle name really an L, or are you going by DL for down low? Like on the down low.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, like I'm wondering, is this like a pen name, or do you really have a middle initial?
Can't be spilling my secret. It is actually, it's my middle initial.
Really?
I won't give out my full name because only my parents know
it's
that.
Leonard.
Lee. I think
Wild
it's Lee.
guess.
You don't have to tell.
You're close.
Okay.
Let's talk about your military service, just so people understand a little bit of your background. You were actually active military service until just this past November.
That's right. Yeah, I did 14 years in the Air Force. 10 of those were for special operations. It's called AFSOC, Air Force Special Operations Command. So doing a lot of cool stuff, flying around in planes. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were in a tumultuous area in Africa, a war zone, and that's where you decided to start writing this book. What inspired you? Where in your, it seems to me like writing a fantasy would be an escape if you're in that situation.
It absolutely was, and I used it exactly for that. You know, coming off missions, you know, flying and seeing all the terrible stuff that's going down on the ground from up in the air, I definitely used it as an escape. And a lot of people say, okay, he's a veteran author, so he's going to write some military fiction or nonfiction or something like that. So when they see the curveball and it's a fantasy story, they're like, really? That's kind of an unusual sort of thing. But that's exactly right. It was definitely an escape for me.
Yeah.
Were you, when you look back to school, were you a big fan of your English classes? Were you always, were you someone who always enjoyed writing or journaling?
Oh man, I tore up LiveJournal in the early 2000s. It was really embarrassing if anyone ever digs those up. But yeah, I loved my English classes, and you know, I had so many really encouraging teachers who would say to me, you know, I'd turn in some essays, and they'd be like, Dave, you really need to keep writing. You're good at this. I never took it up until I was in my 30s, my early 30s though. Gift of the Shaper was my very first attempt at writing something longer than, you know, a LiveJournal entry. So
good for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Talk a little bit about the plot and what the story is about. Who would enjoy this novel?
Absolutely. So on its surface, it's a novel about a war between two sides, trying to free this ancient, terrible god from his prison, and the young man who finds himself safeguarding the key to prevent his release. But at its core, it's a story about overcoming adversity, really kind of being bigger than the roles that you were born into. And sort of a David and Goliath story, only in this case, Goliath is a god. So, and you know, like you said, it's a fantasy novel. I grew up reading Lord of the Rings, you know, Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and all that. So, you know, Game of Thrones fans, Harry Potter fans, those are the kind of people who are going to find this entertaining.
Good.
I think that's great. People always talk about the editing process and then getting a book published and negotiating all of that. Was that, so you've got the whole issue of writing the book, but then it seems like there's all this other stuff too.
Oh, absolutely, and that's the hardest part, really the editing, because you have to listen to people tell you what you did wrong. So, you know, and it's just, it's so humbling, but it's absolutely essential. And in fact, so I just finished writing the sequel, and it's in the first draft right now. So it's open to what's called beta readers, and those are the people who go through it and they're like, this is terrible grammar. What are you doing here? And you know, they pick apart the plot holes and everything like that. But it's so essential to telling a good story that I have to open myself up to it and let people kind of knock me down a peg or two.
Yeah, subject yourself.
Yeah, I like the fact that there's already a sequel, so people are going to like that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so we heard that you had this picture taken with Jessica Alba, and you were cropped out of it when it was shown in a deli?
Yeah.
Was it like on a deli wall?
Yeah, it was the most bizarre thing. So I was in Afghanistan when my friend sent me a picture that I'd taken. I took a selfie with Jessica Alba. We were on a plane together out of Mexico a couple years ago. And you know, it was the coolest thing, and I don't know how this deli got a hold of it. But they cropped me out and just hung up the picture of Jessica Alba up there. So it was just a picture of Jessica Alba.
How could you tell it was your picture? Was your shoulder or something?
So I put it up on my Facebook.
Yeah.
And my buddy Ed, thanks Ed, he noticed it and he was like, there is something extremely familiar about that picture. Hang on a second. And you know, you see the full picture and it's like me smiling with Jessica Alba. And then, you know, all it is just a cropped out picture. It's just a picture of Jessica Alba.
Well, you know, you didn't matter at that time.
And time picked it up. Isn't that bizarre?
That is bizarre.
Never know. Maybe it'll be a cropped picture of you someday with her cropped out. You
Fingers
just never know. dl-jennings.com is where you can get yourself a copy of Gift of the Shaper as well. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your service.
Thanks for your support.
Yeah.